90 Day Fiancé Jasmine Pineda replaces Angela Deem as TLC's Queen Bee? Jasmine Pineda debuted on 90 Day Fiancé, before the 90 days in 2021. At the time, fans mostly noticed her temper, and the ups and downs with Gino Palazzolo. Of course, fans also noted her love for cosmetic surgery. Now in 2025, Jasmine seems more than just another reality star. Actually, she's become one of the most talked about people in the TLC franchise. Is she giving Angela Deem competition as the Queen Bee of TLC? Plenty of social media engagement. On Instagram, Jasmine garnered close to 500,000 followers. In fact, her 3 most recent pinned posts, including one uploaded only a day ago, pulled in between 9K, 14K, and over 1,200 comments. Obviously, so much interaction puts Jasmine ahead of many of her co-stars. Everyone knows that engagement matters because it generates income and also reveals that people react and debate. Is Jasmine popular, or did she get so much interaction because of her polarizing nature? Controversy often fuels 90 Day Fiancé storylines, and Jasmine certainly delivers. After marrying Gino, their marriage quickly cracked under the pressure. By the time they appeared on 90 Day, The Last Resort, Jasmine shocked everyone by revealing her pregnancy with actor Matt Broni's child. Later, she gave birth to their daughter Matilda in March. The threesome. Since then, Jasmine shared updates about her life with Matt Broni's, who seems to co-parent their child. That started after she asked Gino to accept an open marriage. Meanwhile, her legal ties to him remain unresolved. At the same time, Jasmine Pineda claimed she wanted to return to Panama to be closer to her 2 sons she left behind. Therefore, her story stays complex and which keeps fans coming back for more. The Angela Deem comparison. For years, Angela held the crown as the queen of the TLC franchise. With nearly 1 million followers, she still commands a bigger platform. However, Angela's engagement seems, on average, way less. Meanwhile, Jasmine's posts feel lively and current. Fans either love Jasmine or love to hate her. Actually, that's what Angela used to be like before she became yesterday's news. Back in 2023, we wrote about whether Jasmine could become the next Larissa Lima because of her cosmetic procedures. At the time, the comparison seemed fair since both women loved glamour and controversy. Yet in 2025, Jasmine looks different. She no longer feels like a copy of Larissa. Instead, she somehow built her own brand of drama and influence. The new queen. So, did Jasmine Pineda take over as the queen of 90 Day Fiancé? Possibly, as the numbers certainly show a lot of engagement. She drives fresh drama, and she keeps her audience invested with every new update. One thing that we know about her is that she seems impossible to ignore. What are your thoughts? Sound off in the comments below, and come back here often for all your 90 Day Fiancé cast news and updates. 90 Day Fiancé, out of 90 weddings, these 5 wedding day twists were pure chaos, and I loved it. Over the course of the last decade, 90 Day Fiancé has showcased more than 90 weddings, with some of those special wedding day moments forever etched in my memory. Recently, Sarper Guven and Shekinah Garner reached a major milestone by exchanging views, marking the 90th wedding to be featured on the show. Due to their disagreements over a prenuptial agreement, I was convinced they would split up, but to my surprise, they defied the odds and tied the knot. Fast forward to June 2025, Sarper and Shekinah are happily married, with a bright future ahead of them. Just as Sarper and Shekinah have a strong relationship, I have also seen 90 Day Fiancé feature other successful marriages that have lasted. One example is David Toborowski and Annie Suwon, who got married in November 2017 and are still going strong. They recently had their first child, Minthira, and have managed to make things work despite their massive age gap. Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh also surprised many 90 Day Fiancé viewers, including me, by getting married despite facing many challenges. They were able to overcome a 30-year age difference and major cultural differences to make their relationship work. I've watched 90 weddings featured on 90 Day Fiancé, and a few wedding day moments still stand out to me. One of those moments was Armando Rubio and Kenny Niedermeyer's wedding, which had the sweetest plot twist. Despite facing numerous hurdles and delays on their journey, their strong compatibility made me certain that they would eventually get married. I also assumed that most of Armando's family members would be present at the wedding, except for his emotionally distant father. However, to everyone's surprise, Armando's father showed up dressed for the occasion, proving that he truly cared for his son. Mike Youngquist called off his wedding with Natalie Mordovtseva at the last minute. They didn't get married in 90 Day Fiancé Season 7, so I was curious to see if they would have a different outcome in Season 8. It seemed at one point that they might successfully overcome their problems and get married. However, the unexpected turn of events happened when Mike canceled the wedding just hours before the ceremony. Natalie was on the verge of leaving the US when she reconciled with him, ultimately marrying him in the season finale. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Angela and Michael's journey during the early seasons. Their entertaining arguments never failed to bring a chuckle, making me eagerly anticipate their wedding day. Angela's boisterous personality perfectly complemented Michael's more laid-back demeanor, with her dominant role in the relationship always standing out and providing endless laughs for viewers like me. One moment that particularly stood out is when Angela humorously questioned the idea of obeying her husband during her wedding vows, leaving the pastor and the audience in stitches. When the pastor asked Angela to repeat the lines, "to love, honor, and obey," she nonchalantly responded, "Obey what? Obey who? This moment remains one of the most memorable and amusing in the 90 Day Fiancé franchise's history. Annalie Vallejos was almost a runaway bride. While I have seen many fictional shows featuring runaway brides, Annalie Vallejos' wedding in 90 Day Fiancé was probably the first time I witnessed someone almost doing it in real life. Numerous issues, including a language barrier and cultural differences, marred Annalie's relationship with Clayton Clark. Despite that, Annalie agreed to marry Clayton, hoping things would improve. To my surprise, just before the wedding, Annalie experienced a last-minute existential crisis. She disappeared hours before the ceremony, questioning if marrying Clayton was the right decision, especially since she was feeling homesick and her father didn't approve of the marriage. Shekinah Garner and Sarper Guvens betting. The 90th wedding on 90 Day Fiancé was full of drama. Shekinah and Sarper decided to get married after overcoming issues, including Sarper's controversial past with over 2,500 women. It was heartwarming to see them fulfill their dream of turning their romance into a serious commitment. However, they shocked not only me but also other viewers when they decided to have a betting instead of a traditional wedding. I'll admit it, I felt bad for Joan when she learned she'd have to share the house with Lucille and that Greg couldn't afford a new apartment. Lucille even asked them to have separate rooms and to track when Joan took a shower. However, I can't understand how Joan didn't know about Greg's codependent lifestyle, especially after giving up her life to move to America and marry him. Now, there seems to be a new development in their story, and once again, it makes me question Joan's intentions. Is she really in it for love or something else? How did Joan meet Greg? The way Greg met Joan is complicated and also raised some red flags in my head. Greg had fallen asleep on a man's shoulder during a flight. The fellow passenger was from Uganda and owned a safari company. Greg and the man talked for 6.5 hours straight, and he ended up inviting Greg to Uganda. Greg packed his bags and left for Africa. He checked into the guest house and saw Joan within the first hour and a half of being in Uganda. I didn't understand what Joan was doing at a guest house if she was living in the city. Greg also revealed he didn't talk to Joan much. He recalled telling her about his weight loss journey. However, 1.5 years later, Greg was still thinking about Joan and how he let her get away. He never figured out how Joan found him on social media until one day, he got a friend request from her. Greg went back to Uganda a second time. He proposed to Joan on her birthday, and Greg was ready to marry Joan by bringing her to America. Joan has responded to pregnancy rumors. It appears Joan has been living in the US for a while now. The show doesn't reveal the timeline of when it was filmed, but Greg and Joan did seem to visit New York sometime towards the end of 2024 in episode 11. It's not known when the rumors of Joan possibly being pregnant may have started, but it was something Joan felt like she should address. In April 2025, Joan shared some Instagram story updates to address rumors of her having a baby with Greg. 90-day fiancé _Alexa reposted these stories on their account, which showed a TikTok video Joan had shared on her stories. It showed her wearing a pretty purple dress, surrounded by lush greenery as she played with her hair. Joan captioned the post, "How do I explain to my homies that I'm not pregnant?" Joan added that it was just the American food she had been eating since leaving Uganda that was making her gain weight like crazy. Joan proceeded to share a different picture of herself in a garden standing against a tree laden with pink flowers. Joan posed like a model in her orange jumpsuit, but it seemed she didn't like the way she looked in it. She captioned it, "Sometimes I just look bloated." I noticed Joan replied to a few comments on the blogger's post where she told a fan that they only buy organic groceries now. She assured 90-day fiancé viewers that she would soon consult a nutritionist. Will Joan split with Greg in the future? I have this gut feeling that Joan could indeed be pregnant and is hiding it now to save her storyline from getting spoiled. This has happened before in the case of other cast members, such as Tiger Lily Taylor, Memphis Smith, Thais Ramone, etc., who had to keep their pregnancies a secret until the season ended so they could unveil the truth during the tell-all. I don't think I could fully trust Joan anyway. It wasn't the same when she was first introduced. Greg's mother came across as inhospitable to Joan and made her feel unwelcome. However, she didn't deserve the mean taunts Joan had been throwing at her. Joan told Greg's mother that she should leave the house more often so Joan could have privacy. She even watched her reaction as if she were intentionally testing Lucille. It made me wonder if Joan had planned her first meeting with Greg and used him as a way to come to the US. Could it be that Joan might leave Greg after